Hey, it's Lane from LainTCG, and I know it's Nats weekend, so this is probably going to fly under the radar a bit, but I wanted to put out a video about a pet deck that I like from this format for those who want to play something different, something like tier 1.5, lower tier 1.5, or for people who have more casual locals. So I just wanted to put out something like that for you guys. If that's not anything you're interested in, hope you have a nice weekend. I'll probably be doing content next week, reviewing some of the Nats decks, but for now, uh, we're here. So this is Black Knightmon, like black base Lord Knightmon. And we are specifically doing the Knightmon version, not the Dark Knight version. So let's get into that. While not as competitively viable overall due to extra setup required and lack of tamer support, Black-based Lord Knightmon is a deck that was introduced with new support in Special Booster 2.0 that was kind of overshadowed by the purple version. So instead of rare Lord Knightmon, these builds focus around Lord Knightmon Ace that plays a card with Knightmon in text that is level 5 or lower. This deck overall has two potential pathways. Um, Knightmon archetype focused, which is what I'm going to be talking about today, which aims to spam out as many creatures as possible to brute force wins with massive boards, or Dark Knightmon focused decks that uses the Ace's ability to play a Dark Knightmon with sources from your trash and under a tamer for free, and use mild control and beatdown elements to win. They play similarly, but kind of different. But yeah, we're going to get into the rest of it now. So, why Knightmon Tribal instead of other options? Dark Knightmon is an okay deck with decent control elements and some tamer hate, but it's fairly jank in comparison to the pure Knightmon focus in your level 5 slot, even though you use the same searchers and some enabler pieces. So overall, because of how strong Lord Knightmon X is and its effects, along with the power of Lord Knightmon Ace's ability to drop level 5 Digimon, you end up having more synergy overall with Knightmon and its inherits and its abilities than you would with Dark Knightmon, because you don't want to be cutting out Lord Knightmon top end to end up playing like the extra Dark Knightmon stuff that kills your tamers. It doesn't really fit together as like a playstyle, and you end up having to cut out a lot of your extra options to do that. So this specifically works as more of a swarm beatdown strategy that can end up making your level 3 Digimon regularly up to 9k or bigger with fairly intimidating end boards that can be hard to respond to. It's not the best by far, so I would put it as solidly either top of tier 2 or bottom of tier 1.5, and it makes for a fun playstyle. I personally put it now at like bottom of 1.5 to like middle of 1.5, but arguments can be made about it being tier 2 because the things that it loses to are the things that people are playing right now, basically, right? So we're going to get into what makes the deck work. Lord Knightmon Ace is basically the objective of the game because your goal is to get as many bodies on board as possible, and Lord Knightmon Ace is the piece that gets you there most of the time. Unfortunately, unlike most Ace cards, it has no on play. It only activates as a win digivolving. It costs 4 to digivolve into it, which is not ideal, so you're mostly going to be wanting to do it defensively on your opponent's turn. But when digivolving, you may play one level 5 or lower Digimon card with Knightmon in its text, so anywhere in its text, from your hand or trash without paying the cost. This amounts to most every card in your deck that isn't the top end or a floodgate. We run one floodgate in this deck, and that one does not have Knightmon in text anywhere, but basically everything else does. So expect to be able to play anything. There's a good bit of versatility to be had with this, but mostly you'll be slamming Knightmon in particular, level 5. Also, all turns, all Digimon with as much or less DP as this Digimon gain collision. So it gives your full board pseudo blocker when your opponent attacks, and it gives your opponent's Digimon pseudo blocker when you attack as well, which you can use to piece apart your opponent's board as their pieces either need to be turned sideways and are open to attack that way, or may be forced to block. So, it costs 4 to digivolve into it, which is a bit expensive to do on your turn, but sometimes the value is there so you can just slam a Knightmon on board for any situation that you're in, or to like kill something with the promo Knightmon. So this is your most important piece, and you'll want to see literally all 4 copies in hand if at all possible. So, LordKnight X, you're probably aware what this does, specifically because of purple-based LordKnightmon, but it is an all-star in this deck in particular. So, for 1 on top of LordKnightmon or 4 on top of a level 5, when digivolving for each of your Digimon, de-digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon. Because it's not de-digivolve X, you must de-digivolve each time and not up to. So, like, if you have 4 Digimon on board, you have to de-digivolve 4 times. You cannot choose to do, like, 1 or 2 instead. Then, until the end of your opponent's turn, one of their Digimon can't digivolve, which does not have to be the same one that you de-digivolved, which blocks ace plays on your attacks. So, you use this to specifically keep your opponent from responding to you on your push turns. Most importantly for this deck, though, all turns, while LordKnightmon or X Antibody is in sources, all of your Digimon with Knightmon in text gain Alliance and get plus 3000 DP. Alliance is a stackable keyword, so you can use multiple instances of Alliance at the same time. And basically, every Digimon in this deck, aside from your Floodgate, has Knightmon in its text. So they can all use multiple instances of Alliance and attack with them like all at once. And you can, this also has collision and piercing to piece apart your opponent's board. You know, probably from listening to my videos, that I am like a black player, like a purple and black player, but like a black player at heart. And the thing that I like to do most is to get rid of my opponent's board state and snowball, and this deck does that a lot. So, the first key card other than your top end is the promo Knightmon, which is a little bit too expensive for what it is, but it is necessary for this version of the deck, unfortunately. It is the most expensive card in this deck. One of the 2 cards that primarily wants to be played out for free off of Knightmon ACE is this one in particular. This is your primary removal option and makes your ace play typically a removal response instead of just putting a guy on the board as well. So this Knightmon costs 7 to play from hand, and sometimes it is good to just play it from hand, or 4 to digivolve on top of one of your yellow or black level 4s. You only run black, so that does not matter on the other color, but regardless. So on player when digivolving, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 3k DP for the turn for each of your Digimon. Unlike Cherubimon Ace, it does count itself for this effect. So basically, it's always going to do minus 6, but frequently will do minus 9 or minus 12, which you can easily block a Digimon that is made that much smaller or instantly kill things if they're attacking early. Also, the Inherit is extremely good in this deck because, again, this is a swarm strategy. So for the Inherit, all turns, once per turn, when another Digimon attacks, so this is either your Digimon or your, opponent's Digimon, either counts, you may play 1 yellow or black level 3 Digimon card from your hand without paying the cost. So all of your rookies can be played for free. Your rookies search and do utility things for you for the most part. So you can go wild with it, and it specifically doesn't need to be something that has Knightmon in text, so you can also play your Floodgate rookie off of this as well. It gets your board really wide, really quick. In like 1 or 2 turn rotations, you can have up to 3 or 4 Digimon added to the board. Then we're going to go over the Knightmon with the best Inherit. This is really the only other Knightmon that you'd even think to run in level 5, but still. This Knightmon is better for your overall game plan than the previous one if you don't need to use removal, because the Inherit sets up your aggro later. So 8 to play or 3 to digivolve into. Again, sometimes you do need to just drop it at 8 cost, even though it does not do anything on play. But it's a blocker that on the end of your opponent's turn, once per turn, taunts an opponent's Digimon. Your opponent must attack with that Digimon at the end of their turn, if it's unsuspended. More importantly, though, all turns, all of your Digimon with Knightmon in their text gain plus 2k DP. So this stacks with the Knightmon X ability, especially if it's in the same stack, and gives plus 5k to everything. It is very common to get 2 different stacks with this Inherit and also LordKnight X with this deck. So you can get plus 10 on everything very quickly, depending on how things work out. It just gets really out of control really fast if your opponent doesn't have anything to respond to you with. Uh, and now we're going to get into support cards. So almost all the support cards in this deck, aside from one, have a searching theme. I will go over the one because it is the rare LordKnightmon, but we're going to talk about why that one's not as important. But first, the best searcher in the deck, period, for finding your key cards and your top end is DeadlyAxemon from BT7. You're going to want to run 4 of this guy. So 4/4 on play, reveal top 5 cards of your deck and add up to 2 cards with Knightmon in their names to your hand. Because it's Knightmon in name, it works for both basic LordKnightmon, or for basic Knightmon, LordKnightmon, and if you're running the DarkKnight variant or running a list with like 1 or 2 DarkKnight in it just for kicks because you run all the stuff for DarkKnight. It'll grab that for you as well. The inherit's also nice, but it's less busted than the level 5 Knightmon, sorry. Because it's your turn while this Digimon has Knightmon or Bagramon in its name. You do not run Bagramon, so you can ignore that. It gets plus 2000 DP, which doesn't help for your defense turns, but it does help for the offense push, and that is where you want to be using it anyway. So it's fine. Next is your level 3 Monitamon from BT10. You do run the BT19 one as well, but this one is one of your archetype-specific searchers, so this one is more important. For 3, on play, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck and add 2 cards that are black with Knightmon or DeadlyAxemon in their names, or with the Twilight trait to your hand. So this is also one of the best searchers possible. This searcher can also find DeadlyAxemon, which is great, as well as all of your key cards. So it can grab Knightmon or it can grab LordKnightmon. And also, you do run a few Memory Setter Nenes, and you can grab that as well because Nene has Twilight trait. So the only downside of this Monitamon is that it does not have an inherit. Then Kotemon. So Kotemon is a rookie. He is your best generic rookie for the deck, especially if you're building stacks, but also has a filtering feature because for 3 on play, by trashing 1 card in your hand with Knightmon in its text, which again is like every card in the deck aside from your Floodgate, draw 2. Because the ace can play from trash, you can put a card that is useful for your effects, but not as useful in hand, like Promo Knightmon in particular, in trash to draw and find more cards. It can also digivolve for 0 on top of a black egg and gives a stack with its inherits generic plus 1k DP as well. So you're going to want to see it pretty frequently. It is a very good card. Then, support card, like the last one, is the rare LordKnightmon. So this kind of breaks up the flow of everything else. It isn't essential enough to be a key card, but it does support the overall game plan. So this LordKnightmon for 3, when digivolving, you may play 1 level 4 lower Digimon card from your trash without paying the cost. The unfortunate thing is that your level 4s and lowers are either your rookies, which will do search things for you, or, draw cards if you're using Kotemon, or do your Floodgate. Or it is like your Deadly Axe, which searches, which is nice. Or you also run the the other level 4 other than Deadly Axe for DarkKnight stuff. And you run like something for protection. So it does all of those things for you, but it already needs to be in your trash to do that. And this deck does not really filter to trash in the same way that, the purple LordKnight base does. So it's less ideal. You may also, on your opponent's turn, once per turn, when an opponent's Digimon attacks, you can change the attack target to one of your Royal Knight trait Digimon. So any of your LordKnightmon, including LordKnightmon X. It is nice for the redirect more than for the other thing. Mostly this is used to play out your searchers or Gladimon or Maildramon for stack protection in a pinch. But that's kind of it. We're going to get into the utility cards now. Gladimon and the next card specifically serve as utility pieces to stop potential plays that would get rid of a stack for you. So for 5 to play from hand, which again, sometimes is your best move, or 2 to Digivolve on top of a level 3. On player when Digivolving by trashing 1 card with Knightmon and its text in your hand. Until the end of your opponent's turn, one of your Digimon can't be deleted by your opponent's effects. This is primarily used to stop red decks counterplay or ace mechanics during your pushes, or to stop Gallantmon or red hybrid style effects, just overall. Though also serves as a pretty good 1k generic inherit for if you're making like your first stack to go on to for LordKnight ACE. And then Maildramon is like the best protection for this deck, period. Unfortunately, its effect is not as potent as it could be. But it exists entirely for protection because blocker as an inherit is mostly redundant for this deck. But it is incredible just sitting on the board, and you will see why in a second. So for 4, or 2 to Digivolve into, all turns when any of your Digimon with Knightmon in their text would leave the battle area by your opponent's effects, by placing this Digimon as any of those Digimon's bottom Digivolution card they don't leave. So you get to prevent a deletion, a bounce, a bottom deck, any kind of thing that would get rid of one of your stacks. Maildramon can stop that by slotting itself from on the board to under something. It is incredible protection for any of your important stacks. It's kind of only hampered by the ability to, by it having to be on board and not something you can do from hand. Like if it was all turns, or like a hand counter thing slotted under to do that, it would be better, but it makes sense because this kind of balances it. Basically, it is good to play this just from your hand a decent bit of the time, because you kind of need to stop ace plays. But yeah, because the ace can play anything with Knightmon in text, this can be played if you're expecting crackback, but also for 4, it's not that big of a price for a piece. They'll have to target before anything else because it has to die, or else, their wipe doesn't do the thing that it needs to do. And then the last utility card is Fist of Athena. This is a really long one because there is a lot of things that this does, but this is one of the most incredibly useful options they've ever printed for a deck. It's not very good in anything other than this because purple-black is not the hugest combination of things, though you could run it in Dextor Goramon, and it would be good in Dextor Goramon. For 3, you may use this purple-black option, or if you have a Digimon with Knightmon in its text, you can ignore the color requirement. So most of the cards in your deck will work with this. Main, until the end of your opponent's turn, give one of their Digimon start of main phase, this Digimon attacks. Then place this card in the battle area. And then the delay effect. All turns when an attack target changes, delay. One of your Digimon gains piercing and security attack +1 until the end of your turn. So it sets up you getting to do your ace play, and then gives the ace security attack +1 and piercing, in addition to what it would have when you Digivolve into LordKnight X the next turn. Because you're trying to play around your opponent's attacks to trigger ace and make your board wide, a guaranteed taunt is a huge play to have, and using it at the right time can easily ruin an opponent's plan before they're able to set up properly, because most decks in this meta do not have any form of battle protection at all. Also, security. You may play one level 5 or lower Digimon with Knightmon in its text from your trash without paying the cost, then place this in the battle area. So this also does the same thing that LordKnight ACE does if it's hidden to security, and then you can play your promo Knightmon out or your other Knightmon out to be sure that you get to do the effect that you need if you do not already have a Knightmon on board. And we're going to go over utility options. These are fairly straightforward. For this deck in particular, I recommend Defense Training and Black Scramble in particular, though if you like Black Memory Boost, that also works as well. The reason I prioritize these over Black Memory Boost is because this deck has an amount of searching and card draw by itself that is pretty absurd. And I feel like Black Boost is less necessary because you do not need to dig 4 cards deep all the time. Rather, refunding some of the potentially high Digivolution costs, especially for Ace if you need to do it on your turn, or returning key top end pieces to the top of the deck with Scramble just is better in my experience. But again, do whatever you like with these. All of them work, but in my personal build, I started with 4 defense training. My example list will show the 4 defense training list, but I settled on 3 training and 1 scramble. Ratios are movable though, and if you don't like all of the utility cards that I use for like the other stuff, you can slim some of those down to add more of these if you want to like even out your consistency. Though again, if you try this out, you will be searching a lot. So here's the example deck list. I'm sorry that it is quite small. I believe, let me move my PNG tuber for a second. So Fist of Athena is at 2, so you're aware, just so that's clear, because it was behind me when we went into this. So this is my deck list. I've since updated it with a scramble instead. Feel free to fudge things how you like. This is just something to go off of to start. So to quickly go through the 4 cards we didn't cover, Zenimon is a floodgate. It's very good for that. I run it at 2. It is the only thing in the whole deck that does not have Knightmon in text other than Nene, but Nene is not something that is targetable by your searches other than the Monitamon anyway, so it does not matter. Skull Knightmon, which is the thing that I forgot the name of earlier in this, is for an extra security attack on a larger stack if you're going up from 0, or going up from your, like, egg, you know. Nene Amano is a searchable memory setter. We do not use the cross effect at all in this deck. It is literally just here for setting, and also because you can search it with Monitamon, so it's an extra hit in case, you know, you're worried about not getting things off of that. And then the egg Konzenimon has all turns draw 1 when you kill an opponent's Digimon in battle, and considering everything gets collision with this deck, yeah, it just makes sense. So that is the deck list, and then we are going to go to the game plan. You'll want to make 1 stack in the back for the first few turns while searching via any of your support cards for your top end or setting up trainings, and Nene while you wait for your turn to do things. Then Digivolve into Knightmon when you are able. As soon as your opponent starts attacking, use every LordKnight ACE available to you to make your board as wide as possible and kill their high value targets with promo Knightmon, or set up later inherits with Black Knightmon. On your turn, after you've gone wide, Digivolve onto Lord Knightmon Ace into Lord Knightmon X and start pushing huge damage as quickly as possible with collision to take apart their board state. If you can't immediately win, make sure that they have as little amount on the board as possible. Because you have piercing, you will swing through people as quickly as you can. This is a snowballing gameplay style, similar to Dexter Goromon, which is why I like this deck a lot. It's fairly slow to start, but once you get into your top end, it can be fairly difficult to deal with for your opponent. There are some downsides, though, which we are going to go into now. Weaknesses and how strong is it really? This deck is extremely weak to ace cards and to things that strip sources in particular, which is why I put this at like the bottom of tier 1.5, because everything that is really meta viable at the moment does these things or has things that ignore you. This is pretty good into Magnamon X in particular, but other than that, not so much. So, your stack your stacks just in general do not have any built-in protection and need other pieces on the board actively to keep them in play. So ace cards with removal are hard to deal with. And due to most all of your stacks having LordKnight Ace in them, eventually you're extremely vulnerable to losing on death, like losing turn on death or source strip, extending their turn much, much longer. Also, effects that keep you from playing by effect kill the deck entirely. So, you know, you do not want to see red stuff that stops play by effect. Or Pillowmon. So also, while you run a lot of searchers, not seeing your pieces will just kill you. Having your best move sometimes be hard dropping a 7 or 8 cost Digimon to even play the game if you don't have anything in your hand also just feels really bad. And hope it doesn't get removed if you don't have a LordKnight Ace in your hand. Can be a really painful spot to be in if you don't have a payoff, right? I would say it's tier 1.5, but it has at the low end to the middle end of that. It could also be top of tier 2 though, depending on, your personal ideas about that. But by my criteria from my previous video, if you want to watch how I rate things or why I rate things, it is tier 1.5. The payoff is incredible. Like, you have so many blanket effects on the board that it genuinely slows down DCGO when you're on your end state. It is kind of wild. You can get your board states with 5 or 6 creatures on the board and rookies at 12k that can also trigger Alliance multiple times. And it has enough searchers to have a decent bit of consistency. The glaring issue is its weakness to specifically powerful decks in the format at the moment, running tons of ace cards and removal in particular. Yeah, it's not ideal for that. Also, if you run against Mirage and they have a Mirage on board, you just kind of lose because all of your effects add cards to hand other than like LordKnight ACE and LordKnight X. You need all of your low ends to search things, and if you cannot search, you lose the game. But we'll see if they do anything about Mirage as time goes on. At the moment, it doesn't look like they're going to, but who knows? And please like and subscribe and share this with your community or friends who are looking to get into the competitive scene or would like to learn this kind of funky pet deck. My Twitter and Twitch is LainTCG. My model is by Be a Big Shot or @Arabiataho on Twitter. My cursor model for when I do streaming stuff is by VeniVidiVT or @VeniVidi_VT on Twitter. My banner is by YoYoms on Twitter. And my logo is by Pinkybird on Twitter and VGen. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a nice day and good luck at your locals. See you next time.